Alrighty, welcome everyone to the next episode, the episode of Let's Talk Horses, Life and Living. I get to welcome back my guest this week, Miss Désirée DuMonde. Thank you so much for returning to the podcast.
It's my pleasure. I love hanging with you.
Yay. I just remembered before we came on, I was getting ready and I was like, oh, we were just together in Costa Rica a few weeks ago as well, which is so interesting because we were sort of talking off air before we hit record about the planet and where we live. And, I'm back in Australia and you're at home in Colorado, and both the sort of volume of the planet we live on, but also the smallness of the planet we live on, because it feels like you're very far away, but you sort of go to all of these places and so many of them feel like your home. It's such an interesting energy when you get out of your backyard and start traveling around the world and really getting to see some of the magnificence of it. So thank you again for being here. And I would love to just dive into you at this very point in time. Désirée, tell us a little bit about what's happening in your world right now.
Such a beautiful day to be asked such a beautiful question on a beautiful planet full of horses and people. I will just jump right into, I've had an incredible few months of classes and travel, and really looking at what else is possible with caring for me, caring for others. Could this be more elegant? Could this be more fun? Could this actually ever create what I desire? And I know for me, this could be like a bit of a tearjerker kind of conversation, because I'm kind of rippling in so many goosebumps and joy of how these tools, and also horses and tools, have been guiding me toward what I was targeting. So I'll start with this before, pre-me, before the last few weeks, even the last few months. I'll just start with someone I care about probably more than anyone in the world, is my sister and her kids. I have a really beautiful, awesome sister. We were best friends growing up, and we're very different. We have different lives and different paths, but that's somebody I want to care about. And when her life at any point growing up, I'm the baby sister who, if something isn't going well in her world, little Desi's going to show up and change it. And I've wanted to all these years have like the desire to help her, or the desire to make something greater, or let's turn this around. And we all know what that's like when you want to care for somebody, and kind of some of the only tools we sometimes have is to come in and fix things or heal things before it's really been asked for, or do it. And one of the things that I found out in the last few years that was not what I wanted is I'd try to fix something and it would leave her feeling insulted. And I'm not just trying to put my sister on the spot here, but I've done this with many people. Like, I was just trying to help and now you're insulted. This is like the worst possible option. And it would create separation, even though it was well-intended. But approaching these kinds of caring interactions, whether it's with friends, business, your lover, your spouse, your niece, your nephew, whatever. So trying to control them toward greater and leaving them insulted has really been frustrating. And then it's like, what is closeness and how else could I show up? What is it to be a gift without judging anything in their life, trying to fix anything in their life, but I would really like to contribute. So what's going on in my life? When we were in Costa Rica, it was such a joy because I was down there for a couple classes also, and one of them being Gary and Simone's choice for possibilities. And I don't even remember what was said in particularly, but I just was like, I just knew a door had opened, that I could be more in question of what works and when a door is open, and not kick something open that isn't open yet, unless it's my world. But like this elegance and kindness showed up, like, oh, I'm choosing allowance now. Yes. And allowance is not just getting to the interesting point of view. So one of the things I've done with allowance as I study it and explore it is I actually started to I carry Gary's book around with me all the time. And I would realize how often I was in judgment of something. So I would really play with this on such a different level. But I started to feel for a while like, from here, I don't know what to do. So what's a girl to do from this space? That's how it was running through my head for months. Like, wow, I have all this creativity and I'd like to do something with it, but now I don't know what to do because all of my to-do steps were coming from fixing, changing, having some refined judgment of somebody's life.
Yep.
And so when you ask me this question, very long answer, I've been energetically listening from the space of allowance of what can I choose, what actually can be created today, what actually creates the greatest possibility, even though the control freak in me wants to do this, this, and this, but this is the thing that's actually pinging.
Yeah.
And just following my awareness and not reacting to anything, just really listening to the awarenesses, and really living in a different space with that and recognizing the chaos that shows up. I am not following anybody's rules, but I'm not invalidating anything either. And it's just, I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but it's just been really fun to not push in, but not stand too far away, not let someone else's desire to separate be a reason to stand back, but to go ahead and follow my awareness, to show up but not push in, to be there and maybe just being there and melt a bunch of stuff without having to do anything. And there's a gratitude that just like the thrum of all the consciousness around us comes in and helps you be something. And so I really have amped up my ask to be supported in consciousness, do less, be more. And when I need to do something, do it from being all of that more. And it's just so elegant. It might be 2-3 choices a day, but I'm being more with it and letting the earth contribute, letting all the, like, I was not in Colorado, so I was really asking the landscape to contribute to me, asking the weather to contribute to me, asking the air that I was breathing, everything to contribute to me, because I'm not doing what I'm told. I'm instilling chaos. I'm trusting me, and I'm not invalidating anybody else. And that's a really big bunch of stuff all at once.
Yeah.
And so that's what's happening. And what I've been finding out is it really is a gift to the people around me to not be reactive, but to be so present and so much being, which is like with a horse. It's like, wow, now the horse knows I'm the conscious adult here. I've got this. Now we can have peace and figure out what we're doing, where we're going. So it's just been a huge step up of being a leader. And I could thank all the horses that I've ridden for that, because I wasn't really around a lot of adults who had become that growing up.
No. Yeah.
So I thank the horses, I thank the tools, and it's just the beginning. It's like, wow, everybody's bodies, everything calms down when you're not buying into that Norse and Norse slime, that need of reactive reality stuff, need to control anybody, need to make anybody wrong. But hey, I'm going to recognize the thing that I know might happen in 10 minutes. Like, say with a horse, you might see the plastic bag before they do. So you start being the space to handle that plastic bag blowing in the wind. And for me, with my nephew, he has diabetes. And so it was one of those things where I was aware of his body before his body would have something going on. So it could be something before everything goes crazy and we have to handle it, in a crazy way. And that was really like, it was like an honor to get to be.
Yeah. And I mean, God, there was so much in that. Like, you did say things and I was like, okay, remember that. But no, it was awesome. And I think overall, like, really that whole like energy and information was really allowance. Like, it's so interesting how we have these conversations and the timing of the universe as well, because a lot of what you're talking about is like is woven through my world and has been recently, as well as over the past few years, you know, since finding access, I think I'm also inherently a very like I gravitate towards kindness and caring as my who I am. Like, I really want to take care of people. I'm the youngest in my family of the siblings too, but I've always felt like the bigger sister in a lot of ways when it comes to like taking care of things. And even my parents, like, I was like, oh guys, I don't know that you really know what you're doing here. So, and then, so I'm just going to make sure no one dies and everything's going to be okay, because I don't know that you guys have really got a handle of this. And inevitably you start to lean into control, because like you said, we're not shown how to have those skills and those capacities and use them in a way where it comes from allowance. And I think finding allowance is this thing, and even saying allowance now, I love that you said it's just the beginning, because I'm like, even now I still feel like I'm like, what the fuck even is that? Like, what even is that, to be completely aware of everything? Which is one thing, because how much do we cut off our awareness because we don't want to like step into control or know the bad things or blah, 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 whatever, for whatever reason. So it's like this willingness to actually encompass all of your awareness. And from there, always be in the question of like, when do I actually like initiate something here? And when do I just be the space or be whatever it is? And I love what you said as well about the caring side of things. And you talked a lot about the people relationships, but that's with horses as well, right? Like, how many people take what they think is caring and kindness for their horse and turn it into something that is much more like a manifestation of their own stuff, rather than looking at like, what does the horse actually desire? Like, what does the horse truly require of me here? And where can I be that for them? And where am I just sort of being very self-serving and doing things for the horse because I think that's what this horse needs, kind of thing.
Oh, can we just like highlight that again? Because that's what we do with horses. And then we see people doing that with their kids, and we see it doing with your partners. And like, that's been the biggest thing. Like, oh my gosh, this is something that I, kick into control, to, because I was the same way. Like, I've got to hold this all together and make sure we're all safe. That doesn't create a thriving, beautiful, living life. And then it's like caring and thriving and listening and allowance and communion all allow for this relaxation. And so different to live on the planet that way, especially right now. And it can appear on the outside like you're not present. Like, in this reality, when you're being that, like when you're actually willing to recognize, what does the horse require? What does the child require? What does the body here require? That, and if you go into your, like how I used to do it, I'd be like, well, I'm willing to do what I've learned, but anything that I don't think I can handle is where we kind of, we're like pushing our own stuff on the situation rather than receiving the contribution to grow, expand, be more than you've ever been in this moment. Yep. And gosh, I have so many goosebumps, because my horse, like, I've learned from every horse as we do, but my horse was like, you're gonna have to be more for me. And don't patronize me. And I'm not a puppy. Like, you have those at home. You know, like, and she's not just one thing, she's many things. I don't want to pin her even with that. But it was such an honor to be requested to grow the F up. Yeah. And I had to look at places that I hadn't allowed myself to grow up. And that was like, and growing up is a term that, I don't know what that really means, but places where I was still locked in a frustration or a point of view that nobody ever walked me through this. Like, why should I have to do this? Nobody showed me. And now you're gonna, like, I'm on a 1,200-pound animal and I don't know how to do this. And I'm just thrilled. Like, it's just waves of goosebumps right now, because every time that I've been tested to either shrink and worry that I can't handle it, the tools and the space of allowance, and just lowering my walls and barriers and getting to grow into what nobody else could teach me is like, wow. And that's when, like, I didn't have to do anything or say anything in particular, but when we be that around the people we care about, we're not patronizing them or insulting what the parts of their life, like, that doesn't ever work if you're trying to like decide. Everybody's growing up in different places in their lives, and so it just gets so yucky to advise each other. It's like it just is, it's such a different space of knowing now that when I come up on that, just like when I've been on my horse, like, oh my gosh, especially say it's with your sister or a sibling or someone where you grew up together, and there's a lot of memories there. There's a nervous system that kicks in that, like, I'm supposed to empower her by being the little sister. I'm supposed to not say this, and all of the supposed to's come up. And there's just a different space of like, I wonder what I could actually grow up into for all of us right now that's not insulting or pushing in or patronizing to anyone. And when you be that on a horse too, it's like, oh, you start riding in ways you never thought possible.
Yep.
You just like might move together through a field. You might move through some mud perfectly.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's gone for the horse, it's gone for you, like any anxiety. Like we actually get to just melt problems into possibilities. Like it's actually like a thing, it's literal. Like every potential problem from being is melted into just different questions. And yeah, my heart might be pounding. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm wanting to shrink. I feel scared. And I'm going to ride this moment. I'm going to ride this moment. And so I don't know if this is kind of a cool thing that I've been carrying with me a lot. But when I am with people, for instance, and had some of that in the last week, like, oh my gosh, can I handle this as well as I know I can? I like to actually, it might be silly, but it works for me. I like to imagine that I'm with my horse.
Yeah.
Like I'm sitting on her, and then my whole day is different. Like, okay. Because once you're in the saddle and you're gonna have to get over this stream one way or another, you're gonna have to figure it out. So it's like it puts me in a state of creativity with all the emotional stuff, and all the energies might be there, but I get creative when I tap into it. Yeah, that space of allowance, becoming an adult.
Yep. Yeah. And even like, I love that you mentioned like the whole nervous system thing and how much our bodies, like there's a physiological component to all of this as well. That is not to make that the more significant thing. I think a lot of people go down this rabbit hole and it becomes like the thing, nervous system regulation and all this sort of stuff. But, I think some people take it to an extreme, but I think it's also something to be super aware of, because horses, just like us, are mammals, and we have a lot in common about the way we function with our nervous systems. Our nervous systems are structured in a very similar way, but it's that same thing where I think people take that and turn it into like a reason and justification to behave a certain way with our horses, and to be a certain way with our horses, and to be a certain way with our people, where it's like, where you can just take all of this. And like, I love how you started this conversation where it was like this huge melting pot of like all of these different things, because it all exists there, right? Like everything's there. Everything is there in every moment. It's like you've got all of these things going on. And I think a lot of it for me, and I'm sure the people listening as well, it's like it becomes overwhelming at times to try and navigate things in a moment by moment basis. Like when you're like, you just kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm just going to default to this, or I'm just going to go here because I've just fallen into this place of overwhelm again. And I think with our horses, we do it a lot as well. But like, just to look at what you've said and be like, okay, it can get to that. And in that moment, you've got a choice where you can choose to just ask a question, picture yourself on top of your horse and have them contribute to you. Be that space like you talked about not turning yourself down as well. Whereas when we're in these situations, especially with our loved ones, and there's things going on, you tend to kind of like shrink to come into their space to be able to help them, or be that energy that they require. And what was sort of coming up then when you were talking is it's almost like in every moment, no matter even if you're by yourself, but it's a lot easier to talk about when you're with your horse, or you are with your pets, or you are with your loved one, that it's kind of about meeting that person or that thing where they are. Like, it's almost like you meet them where they are, and then you get to be that invitation to be something greater. Yeah. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, it's this thing of being completely aware of everything, but not using that as a way to figure things out. It's like just having this awareness, and again, coming back to the allowance of things, where you exist so completely vulnerably in every moment, and then you get to choose.
Gosh, thank you for that too, because there was something that occurred for me this week. And speaking of nervous system and meeting someone from where they are, so without the tools, you may walk into someone's life, you're like entering their home space, all the energies of maybe their health and their stuff, and your nervous system it's dialing in, it's showing you what's going on here. And without the tools, we think we're having all of that going on. And I had so like this, in this world, they're always like trying to get you to this kind of like blank calm thing. And like, if you try to do that on a horse, I've seen that where people are like, okay, Om Namah Shivaya, I'm calm. And the horse isn't going to move. It's like, okay, we're doing nothing. But the gift of so there's one more step. If we can add this, it might seem like a lot. But I also had to so my body really enjoys a lot of every time you go to that space of everything, then I'm more relaxed, because that's inclusive of the adrenaline pump and an active nervous system, and also inclusive of like REM sleep and totally conked out, yummy, rejuvenating cells, whatever. Like everything is always included as a possibility without trying to get to something, because when we're trying to get to a certain feeling all day, you don't get to use what your body's showing you to be creative.
Yeah.
So for me, so I had to have a steep learning curve, because this is my nephew, this is my sister's most precious thing. I'm liable for his health right now, his body, and he's going through a lot. His body is really up and down, and it's an everything body. And so my body was showing me stuff that gave me an awareness of how I could be more creative. So I would like wake up in a dead sleep, like freaking out. And instead of freaking out, I would be like, wow, what is this? And my body was such a gift to me this week. It was giving me like 20-30 minute heads up, so I could be creative and be in question. So instead of going to what it felt like, okay, what is this? What can I do with this? What's required? What can I check on? Let's go check on him. Let's do this. Let's do that. And just instead of navigating it from like watching out for landmines, it was getting the heads up so we could be creative to just keep going, just keep going, just keep swimming. Like, oh my gosh. So I was like, thank you, nervous system, for waking me up out of a dead sleep like every 3 hours, which was not a problem really, because I could go right back to sleep. And there was also being creative with my body has no point of view. So my body's involved in me caring for this situation, which is, dare I expand this out to our entire life and living. My body's involved in this, but me as a being is the real big thing here. So it's also my job to take care of my body, not from trying to balance her all the time or try to get her to some status that I'm more comfortable with. No, like she's so helpful here. So like my body is so helpful to creating my life when it's erratic, when it's nuts, when it's lunaticy. Like I was just so grateful for all of the little signs and symbols and signals and sensations and everything on such a different level. It's all having my back with my real target, which is stewardship of the earth, of the people I love, of consciousness. And when you add horses to that again, like I owe it to horses for asking for me to be that. And when I'm not being that, it can be a clunky moment in the saddle. It's like I'm like hoping the horse saves my life. Like that's, or like, you do it. I don't know how to do it. You figure it out. And the horse is like, I'm worried about getting eaten. You need to tell me where we're going. And it's been such a gift as an adult to like, I got to ride as a kid and stuff and had all those experiences, but to have like coming back into really learning, some techniques with riding and what works so your back doesn't hurt and how you can communicate well. But it's really that allowing all the energies to come and go. You might have adrenaline pump and then you can expand out and you might suddenly feel like you're falling asleep and everything is creative. It's not just how you feel. It's not just, it's all creation. It's like, what? We're actually creating a different possibility. We're changing where we're going, like where you'd like to go or what you'd like to create with a ride is you're changing your life as you go on that ride and you create and you listen. And you might find out your horse wants to take you to something or show you something that is going to like evolve you into so much more adulthood and stewardship. Like, I just want to like fall to my knees sometimes and be like, all the horses that have grown me the fuck up this year, so I could be what I could be for 1 week for my nephew, it was worth it. Yeah. If that's all it was, and it's not, there's many more things, but that is like, if that's all it was, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's one sentiment. It's like, it's just like big love kind of thing. Thank you, horses. I couldn't have done it without, I wouldn't have and couldn't have done it without the tools and without horses putting me in my body to trust me with my body. And that's why I have a little horse pendant. This is of my horse and it's on me all the time. Because if I can't ride her, she's with me all the time. Like, okay, fine. I'll trust myself. Fine. I'll do it. I'll follow my knowing.
But even like what you were saying with the stuff going on with your nephew and just, I love that, because I've got stuff going on at the moment, mostly like with my body, but with my dog's body, Frankie, as well. And Frankie, like anyone that knows me knows Frankie and I are like pretty good buds. Like we're pretty like tight and stuff. Like she's my little dude. And she's had this stuff going on with her body for like 3 months now, where she's developed like this severe allergic reaction, and we're trying to figure out what it is and blah, blah, blah. And, animals are also, and especially dogs, are so good at healing. Like they're so interested in just like taking care of us, like their people, the people around them, in whatever way they can. And even if that's kind of at a detriment to themselves, they don't really have a point of view. They're kind of like, hey, if you've got this thing going on, I'll just take care of that for you so you don't have to worry about it. And because I was looking at her body, and because we've got these fucking amazing tools as well, and one of the big tools in Access is, who does it belong to? Like, is it yours? When you have something coming up with your body, and I love what you were saying about, because we're very much like dogs. Like our bodies very much want to heal everyone and everything around us as well. And when you take that and you're like, you kind of don't acknowledge it, and you just like you waking up all throughout the night, like, thank God that you're aware enough to know and not lock that in as yours, like to be like, oh, I'm fucked up, or oh, something's wrong with me because this is going on. And you're like, hang on a sec, like what's truly happening here? And acknowledging our body's extreme capacity to heal, and their extreme awareness of everything and everyone around them. And, looking at Frankie, and I was briefly with Dane here at lunch the other day and sort of mentioned, about my dog. And he's like, well, is it hers? And I'm like, I know it's not hers, and I said something like, but it's not mine either. It's someone else. Like she's healing someone else. But then I was in the car yesterday with her. She was in the back seat, and I'm like, fuck, I think somehow and like, I'm just going to go down this rabbit hole. I think somehow she is healing something in me, and like just started to acknowledge her capacity. And even if it's not correct, like this is in no means is any of this about getting it right or figuring it out or knowing exactly what's going on. But the moment I started to acknowledge, she quite likely, quite possibly could be healing something in my body or in my world, it starts to like just give you a billion more possibilities to start looking at. Like where you stop concluding, and this is like just weaving in through what you said with your nephew, but also with the horses as well. Like when you're on a horse and something happens or there's an energy that comes up or something, and you automatically conclude, oh, this is this. It completely cuts out like all of the other possibilities of what this horse, what this moment, what the universe, what energy is actually trying to show me right now.
Yeah. Which
and
is
this like, yeah.
Well, that's an abundant space to live in.
Yeah.
And it's often when we talk about that, like sometimes I know for myself, I kept coming to this conversation because I knew about this, but I couldn't get it because I was like, that's a lot, infinite possibilities all the time. How am I going to know what the F is going on then?
Like, when do I get to relax? When do I get to stop and switch off? Like, when do I get to, it's like,
or when do I get to know what it is so I can just conclude it and know it and shelf it, right?
Exactly.
And that's what we want to do. And I love what you're at when you got to the space of like, wait, well, maybe this is something in my world. Your parameters, like of your question, like we think we're asking a question, but we have a limited universe that we're willing to have information. I mean, we are powerful. So when it's like, okay, fine, for a second, maybe she's healing me. Okay, so if that's actually going on, your whole repertoire of awarenesses that you're going to start to pick up on increases. And this is where, rather than dynamically pushing away or rejecting total awareness, which I get why we sometimes do awareness in stages, but total awareness seems daunting, but it's such a freedom. It's like one of my favorite books of Gary, A World of Choice, A World of Freedom, another one that lives in my backpack most of the time. But like, I didn't believe his title. I was like, A World of Choice sounds like a world of freaking out. So that sentence, A World of Choice, A World of Freedom, like total awareness is total freedom, total knowing, like, oh my gosh, nothing's wrong here. But it's really, that ties back to the allowance of not having to stick ourselves with a point of view about everything. So when you let everything in without your point of view about what it all is, then you're in an energetic realm, not digging through the contextual files of your referencing of what you've decided everything is based on that one quote unquote plastic bag on the fence, right? Because if you think every time now, say the horse reacts to a plastic bag, and now every time you're having that in your head, and it's never going to change. And so like with your dog too, it's so exciting. It's really exciting when we finally have that courage to be vulnerable enough to go beyond that shelved conclusion. And that's what happened. And that's what I know my horse is. That's what I know. I don't have a histamine thing, so it couldn't be healing me, like whatever. Like the way the dog's body is doing it is one part, but there's so many more questions, and it's not linear. So just sending tons of contributions, because what a gift, and also what else is possible when you finally get the awareness. And there's another thing, I'm sorry, I feel like you had more to say there, but I'm like, I have to share this part. Like with my nephew too, it was like, I could feel my desire to want to lock all his stuff in my body.
Yeah.
And it's really empowering to listen to my body and have his back. But, and I'm going to bring this word up again, but not patronize him with anything like, hey, I'm going to have your back and we're going to see how else we can keep your body happy, peaceful, and calm. But he's the one that's going to have this body. He's the one riding that pony. So it was so empowering to let my body find and discover some different things this week that could contribute to him being in a discovery. So he doesn't just live by, insulin correction at every 30 minutes, having to live in this, like, I can't control this. So anyway, my point is, it was so different for me to not feel myself lock anything. Like, this is you, baby.
Yep.
This is yours. And my body is so aware of your body, and it will always be. But I'm going to just flow you creativity rather than conclusions and freaking out with you. And I could feel that gifting him a world of choice, even though cognitively it might, it doesn't matter if it lands cognitively or not.
Yeah. And I mean, so much about that cognitive thing, like, it's so interesting what you were bringing up then. And when I acknowledge Frankie and her capacity of healing, because the word is empowering. Like, it's so empowering for her then, for me to acknowledge, hey, this is going on for you. And whatever you're creating it for, it may have nothing to do with me. It may have something to do with me, but I just want to acknowledge that I'm here and you have this body and you're creating this in your body, and anything I can kind of be there with you on it. Yeah. It's so interesting because when we acknowledge that, and I think it's so much easier for me with animals, with nature, with the planet, with energies, all that sort of thing, because they don't actually try to get us there. Like, they don't, like with people, it's so hard because, like you said in the beginning, it's not really an example, that we don't have many examples of people in our lives that we can learn this from, kind of thing. So it becomes a bit more tricky for me with people. But when you look at like a horse or a dog or the planet, and you acknowledge something about a choice or what's being created in that moment, it's so completely and freeing and empowering for both you and, using that animal as an example, because then not only does your realm of possibilities and everything open up, but theirs does as well. Like, even just acknowledging in that moment, maybe she fucking is healing me. Like, then her whole world gets to open up as well, because I'm not now going to her, okay, we need to figure this out and we need to do that. That might be part of it, but it's also like it becomes this space for her to also acknowledge what she's creating with her body as well. And for our horses, something comes up in their lives or in their bodies, and we're like, oh, must figure it out, must fix it, and not being like, hey, dude, like, what are you actually creating this for? Like, what is this giving you? What is it giving you that you desire or require right now? And how can I just be here and be that space for you to navigate this with you, but from a place of like total allowance. And I guess it's circling right back to that thing of like, nothing is to be fixed, nothing is to be right, nothing is to be wrong. It's just this space of being in allowance of everyone and everything in every moment. And then from there, seeing what's possible and what we can create from that space.
Yes. And I just had this like whole upgrade just as you're talking of thank you, Frankie. Because I also, this week for me was also like, thank you, my body. Thank you, all the bodies, right? All the bodies. We get out of our thinking mind, we go to awareness, and then we get to actually have all these bodies contribute. But I just got two things. One, thank you, Frankie, because something about this week, I could have easily gone to like that I'm having an anxiety attack, I'm freaking out, and no, every time it was gifting me so I could be more creative preemptively, and I kept acknowledging my body, and then she'd rest so quickly. I wasn't stuck in anything. Like, oh my gosh, this is so fun, actually. So there's that. And it was just the beginning when you were talking about Frankie. I'm like, wow, am I really like willing to enjoy that my body knows greater than I do about healing without getting stuck? Yep. And also what I just got was, am I in allowance? Like, maybe we all could really look at this. Are we in allowance of being healed by others?
Yeah.
Like, I know when I had cats and they both, like, they were the loves of my life forever. And when they both kind of just like checked out, they had all these things going on. And I was like, why did you guys heal in me? And I acknowledged it, but I also made myself wrong. I wasn't actually in the allowance to receive the gift that they were, the gift of their healing. I thought like, I don't need you to do that. I don't need anything. I don't need anything, which is not actually true either. If we're all getting stuck with like refusing the healing that we'd like to do, and then it gets stuck in our bodies rather than letting it flow, letting it move. So I'm like, Frankie, oh my gosh, now like she's been heard, the acknowledgement is there, and now what else is possible? And when we look at things as I just would love to open up what I'm going to just say. I recognize in my nephew too, and not just him, but my whole family really, whether they get it or not cognitively, there was an allowance to have some healing. He was willing to have some healing. Yep. And that I'm like, wow, that's what was also occurring, rather than pushing against a refusal. And then we get stuck with it. But then we often are like, no, I'm fine. I'll heal everybody, but nobody needs to heal me. And then your animals are like, but we're just trying to get your attention. You might be resisting an awareness, you know? Yeah. And we could just really lower our walls and barriers and receive all the healing that's going in so many directions, and allow ourselves to recalibrate and reset to such a different way of maybe our immune systems, our nervous systems, everything. Like if we actually had an allowance to be healed also.
Yeah. And I mean, even where healing becomes a problem, healing of each other and everything around us only becomes a problem when we don't acknowledge it. Like, you know, you look at what Frankie's creating in her body. If you just acknowledge, okay, she has a capacity to heal, she's healing something here, that automatically frees up, rather than being like, okay, what's the problem? We need to get these tests done. And it may be that her body needs support from herbs or medication or whatever it is. But I think it's where the healing becomes disease, the healing becomes pain in our bodies, when we just don't acknowledge, oh, this is a process of healing going on here, and just putting that energy on it allows it to keep doing what it's doing and move. And like you said, it becomes a problem when it gets stuck. The energy stops moving. Whereas when you just acknowledge something, you're in allowance to ask a question, the movement comes back into it, and then it's not a problem anymore.
I mean, wow, if we could just highlight, if anything out of this conversation, it's like, how much have we just made healing in and of itself so significant? Yeah. You have to be so sick, you have to be so jacked up, and then there has to be a solution, and then it has to be a problem. And we're not recognizing sometimes the way the body is acting up, we immediately go to the wrongness rather than that's just a process of healing. So I just want to, like, all of the significance of healing that doesn't allow healing to be what it actually is. Because as we all know, with a horse in particular, they have no point of view of significantly healing you.
No.
I mean, they just be it and boom. It's like, I have had so many times where I'm like 2 minutes standing with a horse and I'm like free of 1,000 lifetimes of sadness. And I'm like, well, shit, thanks. What do I owe you?
Like, it's fine, free of charge this time.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, what else is possible? Oh, sugar. Oh, that's so freaking awesome. Yeah, like really. What's the ease of it, the non-significance of it, and the beauty of it without any added story,
like the need and the significance and you know, just quickly, and I know, you know, we've been going for a while, but it's also fine. But also, like, looking at, there was a moment where we were talking about this energy of like all of the energies, like the relaxation, the adrenaline pump, the fear, the flight, the relaxation, like all of these energies. And I mean, this is what I love about horses, because they, when they're allowed to, and when we don't kind of interrupt that, they're actually the masters of nervous system regulation, just naturally. Like in the wild, they will go from sleeping and grazing to running as fast as they can to escape a predator, where they're in full, you know, nervous system peak overload mode. back to in a moment's breath, relaxation, grazing, like, yeah, just to also acknowledge them for their just the way they've mastered this thing. And Désirée, I talk about this a lot. I think really horses, for me at least, they embody, and not to make them like this big significant thing, but they really embody what we desire as people to have, like to have this, because they don't have judgment, they don't do time, they'll heal, they'll die, they'll injure themselves, they'll die, they'll be born again. Like, it's this, I think they really sort of have this this whole abundance and thrival and enjoyment of every moment thing down. Like, they're just like, when we're not interrupting them and putting our decisions and expectations and projections onto them, they just really have, so much of I think what we aspire. A lot of people are like religion and nirvana, and if I can have this, I'm like, dude, just get around fucking horses and be like a horse, and you'll have all of the religions and all of the everything you desire is like, it's so,
and it's elegant. They're elegant and efficient in those
100%.
Yeah, and one little thing there, like the beauty of the fear in the horse is supposed to be there. Without it, they're not living wild. Yeah. And so I love it, when you learn that on a horse. But I never want to desensitize any horse's fear. Like, I want her to have that spark of knowing and alertness that triggers all of that mastery. And when we stick an animal or a family or a kid or a relationship with something that we've decided, well, this is only healthy if we don't have fear. This is only a healthy relationship if we never have adrenaline. Like, what are we doing? We're killing the whole abundance of the big yummy pot of everything. So they're taking us, Gary, I love how Gary says this, a horse has always somewhere to take you and take you home. And it depends on your point of view of what home is, but home is really living, thriving in the abundance of this kingdom. And like, just to end this, like our chat before we started, like, this is such a unique planet, this marble full of horses and whales and birds and beautiful bodies. And like, I caught this like warmer where I was, and there was this whole wall on somebody's garden, like just the side of their house was just blooming jasmine, and I hadn't smelled jasmine in months. And I literally, like, I had to stop the car. Oh my God. Like, I had to get out, and I'm walking to find the jasmine, and I just was like, there was enough energy in receiving that jasmine to keep me going for another 5 days without any sleep. And that was like, that's just, we live in this beautiful place filled with everything that we can quickly reset, recharge, keep going, totally rest, and live so wildly and so beautifully with all the energies, even including fear. There's a gift in it. And we're always in this world trying to have the elimination down to blobs. Like, oh my God, so boring. Everything, Yeah, so I'm with you. Get in a freaking horse, start feeling all those feelings, and they're not emotional feelings, but all those sensations, and start wrangling that not to eliminate and to control it, but to ride it and enjoy it.
And I love what you said there so much. It's like, how much more can we sensitize ourselves to everything? Like with horses, so much about desensitization. And I'm like, I never want to desensitize my horse. Like, one of my horses, I just rode him yesterday. I haven't been on him in a month because I've been traveling, and I was like, screw this, I need to get on my horse. So my float had a flat tire. I was going to put them in the float and take them up the road. And I was like, okay, well, my float's got a flat tire. We're not going anywhere. So I just saddled him, and we just rode up the street. They've closed my street off because they're repairing a bridge, which is amazing. So we're just riding up the road, and, he like gets a little bit like spooky at things, but I'm like, dude, you do you. If there's something going on, and you like, I don't want to have a horse that's dull and that's just going to follow every cue that I give him. I want to have this constant conversation. And I'm like, fuck, that's because that's what I want in life. I don't want to desensitize anything. I want to sensitize myself. I want to sensitize everything around me to be more aware and more like, you know, smelling the jasmine and being like so aware of every molecule and every moment in time that our senses are. And it's not just our senses, like that's just one way to put it, but that our awareness, really, it's our awareness is constantly getting greater and evolving and encompassing more and never less.
Well, isn't that like the whole majesty of getting to have the infinite awareness with this beautiful body?
Yep.
Like that sensitivity of the body with awareness is like, and I just remember my grandpa, he was the first to always say, and then I found many people along the way, he's like, you want to find a horse with a lot of spark, a lot of spirit, and don't ever take it away. And those are hard horses to find these days, because it is kind of tricky. And so when I found this beautiful girl, and I was like, wow, that's the spirit that I want, but I am kind of desensitized, thinking I'm tougher than I am before I'm willing to really be that in my body. And so I'm so grateful, because my being was like that. Now you're going to have to step up your game so you don't dull her down to where you're functioning from. And so that's just such a joy to, like, not to make her greater, but her wildness and her spirit like turned me on to having more in my life of those, all that stuff with body and awareness and getting to have all my senses rehydrated. And what if we don't know nothing about how yummy our bodies can actually perceive our environment? More of
like
that.
You said at the beginning, it's just the beginning. Like, you know, you talked about all of this stuff, and I'm the same. I'm like, even allowance and these words, these concepts, these energies we've brought up, it's like all of it is every day. Like it's the beginning of what's next to be discovered here. Like it's never, and so much, like you were mentioning, like we're trying to get to this place of like flatline and handling everything, and everything's been compartmentalized into where it needs to be. But what if actually that was like the biggest lie and pile of bullshit we've ever been sold? And it's really like every day waking up and being like, what more can I can I experience? Can I add to my life? Can I explore? Can I touch? And all of the things. Yeah.
All of the things.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I just love your pup. Sending her so much kisses from
Thank you.
From wherever. Yeah. And you know, be willing to be different, that last little thread, because I know like anywhere I've been turning up my sensitivity and my own spark, you're going to be different. You're going to receive judgment. So, you know, just be aware of that and not make it wrong.
Every time for me at the moment where I'm like, I don't know, there's been this energy coming up lately where I'm like, you find yourself like just going into this reality, like aligning with it a bit and being like, okay, maybe it'll be okay. Or you start to feel this, I don't know, this sense of like, okay, I'm aligning myself with what everyone else is fucking doing. Find the weirdest shit you can possibly find. And access consciousness for me is the weirdest fucking shit on this planet. Like it's literally like I'm just playing Dane's CFP that he just did in Geneva. Because I'm like, why am I not, like, I feel like I got home from Costa Rica and my house was like, I'm like, what is wrong? I'm like, why am I not just playing access consciousness classes constantly? Because this shit interrupts every static energy, every bit of flatline, every bit of normal, every bit of, I'm like, and you put any class of them on, and you know, I'll do a shameless plug for Access Me, which is this app that they've put out where it's like $270 a month and you get access to fucking everything they've done for 30 years. Just play that shit on quiet in the background everywhere you go and watch every limitation, every matrix formed energy, like everything just goes batshit crazy and so different. And I'm so grateful, because every time I feel like I'm normal in any way, I'm like, I need to just put some access on. I need to listen. I need to, you know, get my bars run or go to a class or whatever. But it's like, yeah, please go to the weirdest possible shit you can find and interrupt everything on this planet that is trying to make anything
No, everything on this planet that's desensitizing you.
Yeah.
Access for me, I was just like, I am gonna keep listening because it felt like I always have said this. It was like I finally got to drink like real river water. Like it was like cold, refreshing mountain juice. I was like, I just keep drinking this stuff, like because I was getting something every class, every conversation. Something was like, oh, it's such an acknowledgement. Like we don't really know what knowing is until you start knowing that you know anything. And weird stuff. And worst case scenario or best case scenario, if you're just get on a horse and see what you're going to find out, even if you're scared shitless, you're going to come out of it stronger.
Yep. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, my friend. It never, ever shows up the way you think it's going to. And I'm so grateful for everything. But in this moment, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Frankie.
Yes. And contributions to everything. And let's do this again in the next few months or whenever it pings. And so grateful for you. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for listening, guys. Thank you, Désirée.
Thanks.
See you next time.